right, freight brokers, it's Monday morning, and what I decided to do today is to take you into my TMS, my customer's TMS, and let you see what freight looks like. I know a lot of you think that freight, the trucking world, is not impacted by whatever is going on in the economy. You think that the trucking world is separate of that. But what I want you to know today, it's all intertwined. Everything goes together. And just because you're in the trucking industry and consumers need what it is that you're carrying, it still does not mean the trucking industry is not impacted. I'm going to show you how freight is being impacted by what's currently going on in the economy. I would also like you to share in the comments below. Let us know what you think. Is your freight being impacted the same way ours is being? Because we know it doesn't impact everybody the same way. You may have a different story right now. I would certainly appreciate it if you share it with us in the comment section. So let's go ahead and jump inside and check it out.
Good morning. It's Monday morning, and what we usually do on Mondays is start moving freight, or we're looking for freight, or we're doing a combination of both of those, right? So this morning, what I've decided to do was to take you into the TMS system. This is a TMS system of my customer, and I have access, a username and password to this system. And what we go in this system for is to get freight, to see what freight opportunities are available, and then start bidding on that freight. Now, this is a customer that we're usually always able to get freight from. They have lots and lots of freight available because they are a big customer. But what you're going to see today, that's not really the case, right? Because anytime, regardless of how big customers are, in the trucking industry, you're going to have times where things are going really well and freight is very accessible. And then you're going to have times where things are not going so well and freight slows down. I think we're headed toward that time where things start to slow down a bit. We've been in a very hot freight environment, and it's been due to a lot of what's been going on, what's been happening as far as the pandemic is concerned, the supply chain issues, but things are starting to take a bit of a slowdown. And what I want to show you today is how the economy and the freight world correlates, the trucking world. Some of you think there's no correlation between what happens in the economy and what happens in the trucking world. You make the argument that because trucking is the industry that brings everything to the consumer that they need, then you can't get by without it. And even in recessions, trucking is not hurt. And that's just not the case. There's a big correlation between what's happening in the economy and trucking, because rates are impacted, right? I want you to think about something. When fuel went up, as it's continuing to go up, that means that it's costing trucking companies more for fuel. So that means rates will have to increase. Now, of course, that's a fuel surcharge, but rates are going to be a part of that. Rates plus fuel surcharge, the cost to get freight from point A to point B will increase. So when that's the case, then the customer's cost will increase. And that's where we are right now. Prices are continuing to go up. We're in inflation, and there could be a recession waiting not far away. I want to show you how these two environments correlate. Let's go into this TMS system. As I just told you, I have a username and password and have logged into this, and I want to go into plan. Before I go in here, this is the view RFQs, the view request for quotes. Again, this is a big customer, always have plenty of requests for quotes, especially on a Monday. But as you can see, it's now about 9:55 in the morning, Central Daylight Time, and we don't have anything for quotes. Shippers aren't looking for any quotes in this particular region. Now that is very, very unusual. We always have shippers looking for quotes on Mondays, but we don't see that to be the case today. Let's go into freight matching, see if we missed anything out there. As you can see, it says 0 postings met your search criteria. Now, if we will, let's go over to respond to offers. Monday morning, shipments will be offered on this page. And usually we're talking a minimum of 3 to 4 pages of shipments, and we don't have anything available this morning. So that automatically tells you that freight is tightening. We're having a tightening where freight is concerned. Freight is not as available. Let's go in and look at tender and then go into view load tenders. Still don't see anything available. 0 loads meet your search criteria. So what I'm saying here is that there will be times just like this. Freight will slow down. Different things will happen in the economy and it will have an impact on trucking. And we cannot expect that you will continue to have freight rates just go up and up and up and things will continue to be as good as they have been. They can only go up for so long and then it has to come back down. What goes up must come down. So I think that's where we are right now. At least that's what our systems indicate. Freight is coming back to normal. As a matter of fact, it's less than normal. We don't have anything available this morning. Now, is it going to stay that way for the entire day? Probably not. There's definitely going to be some freight available as the day goes on, but it shows us that freight is not as available as it has been. What I think we should be doing to combat this is to have some diversity amongst our customer base, number one. For example, this is a steel customer. The refrigerated customer could still be moving a lot of freight. So you want to have some diversity amongst your customer base so you can keep moving freight regardless of what's going on. But still, there will be slowdowns and it will slow you down. And when you slow down, when you don't have as many opportunities, when you're not moving as much freight, your profit margins will suffer. That's just how that goes. That's a part of it. I also think it's necessary to have additional streams of income. Everybody talks about that, additional streams of income, but not many people do it. We just have one primary source. And when that source is interrupted, it causes a big problem for your cash flow because that's your only source, right? Your primary source is your only source. We don't want that to be the case for a very long period of time because then we are exposed to the risk of when that one source is interrupted, our entire cash flow is interrupted. So it makes sense to have some different ways that you make your money. I don't think you should start establishing different ways until you get that main source to flowing. Once it's flowing, then you can start looking at some other ways of making money. And you want to have those ways as automated as possible because your freight brokerage will require that you're hands-on. So your automated systems should be in place so that you can make some money without having to be so involved, so in the trenches of what goes on. Now, usually when you first start, you have to be in the trenches, but you don't want to have something that's going to consume too much of your time because the freight brokerage will be doing most of that.
Now, in making this video, this is what I want you to understand. Although this is a big customer, this customer does not represent the entire freight market. You may be moving freight with other customers right now, and things could still be going well. You may not even have any problems moving freight. If that's the case, I applaud you, and I hope it continues to go that way. But what this is a small representation of the market right now, what it could be. So it just makes sense to start preparing for what is happening right now and what you could be faced with very soon. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I certainly hope this information has been helpful. If you're interested in learning more about the freight broker business, I'll leave a free link in the description. It's the 5-video series titled How the Load Movement Process Works. Kind of gives you a look at the business before you come into it. That way you make a decision in the light instead of in the dark. And then if you want to learn more about how we go out and get the shippers that we work with, I'll leave a free video right here. So until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.